Good morning. This is Sunday morning. I'm glad to be with you today. I hope today is a great day for you. When I left home today, it was a little bit cooler than it had been in the last few days. So I'm glad that it's going to warm up just a little bit and that I had a warm place to come to. I didn't have to stay outside in the cold. But I hope today you'll find a warm place to have church and hope that our service here, excuse me, will be a place perhaps you would come and visit with us right here at Providence Baptist Church. We'd love to have you. Well, today we're going to continue talking about encouragement, and really one of the ways of being encouraged is by our friends. And we're going to talk about that a little bit about 1 Samuel chapter 23 with two of the best known friends in all of the Bible. That is David and Jonathan. What wonderful friendship those two had. Jonathan was the prince under King Saul, and David was the future king that had already been anointed. Two unlikely friends, but God put them together, and they are an illustration of tremendous friendship. And so we're going to talk about them some today. I hope you'll stay with us as we do. I also hope that you will follow us. We are on two different channels when we do our devotion live. Most of you will watch our video on Facebook, and you'll see that on our church page or the page we set up for my dad many years ago, or our personal page where we put it on all of those. Some of you will watch our devotion on YouTube. If you watch it on YouTube, I would encourage you to like the YouTube and subscribe to it. That way, it increases the visibility and gets our word out a little better. So, if you'd help us with that, I'd really appreciate it. You don't have to put down there that you think we're the greatest because we're not. But if you like it and you subscribe, it will help us with that, grow that channel. And so we want to be a blessing to as many people as we possibly can. I read this one time. I thought this was kind of cute. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson went on a camping trip. And as they lay down for the night, Holmes said, "Watson, look up into the sky and tell me what you see." Watson said, "I see millions and millions of stars." Holmes looked at him and he said, "And what does that tell you?" Watson said, "Astronomically, it tells me that there are millions of galaxies and potentially billions of planets. Theologically, it tells me that God is great and that we are small and insignificant. Meteorologically, it tells me that we will have a beautiful day tomorrow. What does it tell you?" And Sherlock Holmes looked at Watson and he said, "Somebody stole our tent." Well, sometimes the most simple things are the things we ought to get first, don't you think? Today, our text is found in 1 Samuel chapter 23. It is not the complete story of David and Jonathan, but just illustrative of their relationship. The Bible tells us in 1 Samuel 23, beginning in verse number 14, "And David abode in the wilderness in strongholds, and remained in a mountain in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul," that's Jonathan's father, "sought him every day, but God delivered him not into his hand. And David saw that Saul was come out to seek his life, and David was in the wilderness of Ziph in a wood. And Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went to David into the wood, and strengthened his hand in God. And he said unto him, Fear not, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find thee, and thou shalt be king over Israel, and I shall be next unto thee, and that also Saul my father knoweth. And they two made a covenant before the Lord, and David abode in the wood, and Jonathan went to his house. When I was a boy, I loved the outdoors and would venture into the unknown territory. Behind our house, when we were growing up as young children, behind our house in Pensacola, we lived on what is now Airport Boulevard, but then it was Kilby Lane. And behind our house, there was nothing. There was a field there, and then beyond that field, there was Carpenter's Creek, and on the other side of Carpenter's Creek, there was a clay pit canyon that we played in. And I loved going into all of that area, into the woods, by the creek, into the canyon, and just exploring everything we could find. The great thing about those boyhood adventures was that when the day was done, my adventure had never taken me too far from home, and I would be home in time for supper around the table with the family. We played cowboys and Indians, army, and one of my favorites was cops and robbers. And it was interesting because no matter who was the cop or who was the robber, who was the cowboy, it didn't matter. The good guys always won. One of the things I remember was having friends that we would make friendships and make pacts with them as friends. I can remember sometimes we would become blood brothers. I don't know if any of you ever did that or not. But in order to do that, you have to prick your finger or something and make some blood come. And then you take your blood and mix it with the blood of your friend. And now you're a blood brother. Well, we got that idea from the Saturday morning Westerns when an Indian and a white man would make a pact together and become blood brothers so they could never be enemies and fight each other again. Oh, we thought we thought that was a great thing. So we would be blood brothers. Well, those boyhood friendships have become part of memory's garden. But the principle of friendship has been harvested from that garden many times. Someone has well said that if you have one true friend, you are wealthy. True friendships are usually made in the storms of life. One friend in time of trouble is worth more than many when all is well. David and Jonathan were friends for all seasons. David was often hated by Saul, and Saul sought to kill him because he knew David was more well beloved among the people than the king was. If you remember, when David killed Goliath and they came back into Jerusalem as they were coming in, the people crowding the streets said, Saul hath killed his thousands, but David his 10,000s. And David had the heart of the people. And Saul was jealous. And he felt like he had to kill that enemy because he was going to take the throne. What Saul did not know was the throne was not Saul's to keep. It was God's throne. Jonathan knew that David had been anointed to be the successor to his father. And Jonathan was happy. In fact, one of the things we find in our passage is what Jonathan said to Saul. He said to him in verse number 17 of our text, he said, Thou shalt be king over Israel, and I shall be next unto thee. You know what he was saying? That here's the prince. His dad's the king. And he says to David, David, I can't wait when you become king and I can be your right hand man. I'll be with you. I'll serve with you. That's what he said. And in these verses, when Jonathan gives that description, I want to be second to you. Jonathan encouraged his friend that all would be well. I thought about that many times in this as he's assuring him God is going to do what he promised. You will be king. God promised. There is no philosophy given in his words. It's not philosophical. It's just this: God will do what he promised. There was no questioning of motives, but simply a statement that God will do what he said he would do. What a friend Jonathan was to David. The example of encouragement from one friend to another should be followed by all of us that consider ourselves a friend. A true friend will encourage to do right and to expect God to keep his word. We should seek to be that kind of friend to others. The Bible gives many illustrations of friendships and the blessings and dangers of friends. Many times we find friends who are encouragers, and other times we find friends who are those that will lead in the wrong direction. There's a famous story in the Bible about one of David's sons, Amnon, and he had a friend, and his friend encouraged him to do evil, and great destruction was done because Amnon's friend encouraged him to do evil. There are many times when friends are not really true friends and they lead us in the wrong way. And by the same token, there are times when true friends will lead us in the right direction. Barnabas was a true friend to the Apostle Paul and helped him. But not only that, Paul had other friends and he listed them. He called some of them my helpers in the ministry, Aquila and Priscilla. He talked about Luke being with him. These were people who encouraged him in the faith. They were faithful people. You know, many times we hear about friendships in the popular world, in the entertainment business. There have been famous duos that were so well known for years and years, and they made movies and all these things, and then all of a sudden something happens. The friendships dissolve. They don't even talk to each other anymore. We find that true in the music business. People making records, boy, they're just doing great, and then all of a sudden something happens, and the friendship is really dissolved. How tragic is that? How sad that friendship is not really understood as friendship. I have a friend. He's a great friend of mine. I never get to see him. We don't talk probably maybe once a year, but he is my friend. And I think I'm his friend. And when we do talk, it's just as if we had never been apart. Think about friends. And if you think about friends in your life, think of this. In the Bible, in the book of Job, we find the story of Job and all that he went through. We know the hardship. His children all died. His all of his cattle, his herds, everything he owned was destroyed. And then his three friends came. And his three friends were not his friends. Every one of those friends did nothing to encourage or to strengthen him. They came with a blame game, saying only to him, the reason you're suffering is because there's evil in you, Job. They're saying you tried to present yourself as being righteous, but there's evil in you and God is judging you. Where's the encouragement in that? No, those friends were nothing as real friends for Job. All of us need true friends. Somebody said this: a true friend knows our flaws, but is our friend anyway. A true friend is not our friend for what they might gain by being our friend, but being a friend is the gain. A true friend does not turn at the word of others, but is true regardless. We all need friends, but having friends begins with a principle we get from the Bible. He that would have friends must show himself friendly. You want to have friends, be a friend. Be a true friend. Be the right kind of friend. Be the encouraging friend to somebody, even today. Someone wrote this: sometimes the greatest encouragement is simply reminding someone of what God has promised and that he always keeps his promise. God bless you for listening today. Hope you'll join with us again in the morning, 8:30, right here. God bless you today is my prayer.